They sent me the full script, and I didn't know which part I was going to play. So I found the part that seemed like most like me, and I prepared that.
Wow.
I am cramming all these lines, but so I'm reading this going like, I don't know how they're going to do all this in one day. Everything I'd ever done was like a big part in a play. So while I'm reading the script, I'm like, well, clearly I'm this guy, which there may be like an extraordinary sense of like white male entitlement and privilege. I'm like, well, clearly I'm this important guy.
Well, I guess I'm replacing the lead. Okay.
And so you do your audition on the stage, like all the seats are dark. And then after your scene, you hear like these footsteps coming from out of the darkness. And like James Lipton comes down to like the edge of the stage and he gestures for you to come down. And are you ready to commit yourself to this program for the next 3 years? But it's been my experience of being in the business that most of those institutions that charge a exorbitant fee for you to learn the skills of acting do a relatively terrible job at preparing actors to go work in the professional world. I just think if
Yeah.
you're taking, money from young kids and money that are in the five figures, you have a responsibility to prepare them for the professional world as long as we're going to live in this capitalistic knife fight of a country that we live in.
That's a great description of it.
All right. Welcome to the Actor's Guide to the End of the World podcast, where we talk about acting in Hollywood in a way people understand. I'm your host, Ekon Song.
And I'm Rian Sheehy Kelly. How you doing?
What's up, buddy?
I am good.
We have a special guest for today, Timothy Davis. What doesn't he do? He's a Jiu Jitsu master. He's an actor, teacher, longtime friend of the podcast, and a longtime friend. He's also a teacher at Lesly Kahn Studios. Stories from the actor studio, the esteemed actor studio, James Lipton.
You did a movie called The Godfather.
Woo! Yeah, exactly. Stories working with Soderbergh.
Billions.
And he has a exciting new project launching in Los Angeles next month. Distress Signals Project. We're going to talk all about it. Enjoy this episode with Timothy Davis. So this is a special moment. We've been waiting for this moment, Tim. Old friend of the podcast, an old peer, colleague. We've been at the studio, Lesly Kahn Studio, for years. We've been fortunate to have been in classes with you, taught by you. And welcome to the program, Tim.
Gentlemen.
I have no idea what's going to happen, but I have a feeling there might be a couple Mickey Rourke stories. I don't know.
One or two.
We'll see where we go from here.
One or two. Let's get this out of the way at the top. Can I curse on this thing or no? Is this a PG podcast?
Absolutely.
Podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Rian has a real potty mouth, so our audience is used to it now.
Great.
But no, you could let it rip.
Fantastic. I curse a lot being from like the East Coast, but also I grew up in the Midwest, so whenever I do, I feel like I'm disappointing my mother.
I think that's another thing all three of us have in common.
Disappointing our mothers.
Disappointing our mothers?
Exactly.
We're off to a good start.
There's a lot to get into. We want to hear billion stories. We want to hear about your experience.
Nice pun there, because we want to hear a billion stories also.
Terrible pun.
Yeah, exactly.
Terrible pun.
Billion stories. Showtime show, incredible cast, great actors. We want to talk about your history, your deep history in the theater world, and an exciting new project that you have cooking up very soon in LA.
Thank you.
So
We want to hear about the actor's studio. Let's start at the beginning. What do you remember of your birth?
We like to go very deep on this show, as you know. We've been at the studio for a while now, but I actually do want to hear.
This is Lesly Kahn Studio for anybody who's just tuning into this episode.
I really do want to hear about what life was like before the studio.
Yeah, let's talk about Midwest and East Coast. And
Oh, that's a good place. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in the Midwest.
I grew up. I'm originally from like a town outside of Boston, and most of my family is from the East Coast. But we moved when I was a kid to Iowa. It's like this little town just outside of Des Moines. And that's where I grew up. And what I always say about that was it was a wonderful place to grow up if you want nothing to happen to you or to happen for you. So while it was lovely to grow up there, I instinctively knew I did not want to hang around Iowa. I knew I wanted to move to New York before I even knew what I wanted to do, I felt like I read a bunch of like Daredevil comics and was like, well, I'm gonna maybe that was my career path. I was like, I'm gonna go to New York and live in Hell's Kitchen and fight
Fight
crime.
crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what I wanted to do growing up, and then I sort of stumbled in acting midway through college and had no idea of how to do it. I didn't have any training in it, right? I just watched a ton of movies like a bunch of kids, but like I'd never done a play. I'd never, I wasn't well versed in theater or film or television acting at all. But I instinctively knew, like on like my second day, like in the class, I was like, this is what I should be doing.
I love that. That's actually a
Yeah.
kind of a common thread because
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do and I didn't discover acting until I was in college and it was a very similar thing. I had no idea how
Yeah.
to do it and then I got a part in a short film and went, this is what I want to do. And Ekan,
Yeah.
you didn't grow up wanting to be an actor.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I think a big part of it for me was like I was a really demonstrable kid and I was a really sort of emotional kid. And so finding a place where like you were actually rewarded for that and not punished or chastised for that seemed attractive.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, Tim. So because this timeline does track with Rian and myself. So in high school, what did you think about the theater kids? Like, did you have any opinion of them at all? Like, I'm just wondering, was there any?
Well, I went to a fairly small high school where, again, like a lot of, American public high schools, like sports were sort of the thing around which all social engagement orbited. So, I played football, I played basketball, I was doing judo.
Mm,
And so we always had a fall play and then a spring musical. And I knew I had no interest in the musical because I couldn't sing or dance. Um, and I had no interaction with that world at that point. And I feel like there was occasionally a temptation to like check out what the fall play would have been. Um, but it was also sort of like culturally implied that if you went out for the fall play, you were not starting, because it was at the same time as football. And so
yeah.
I made the choice to play football. I think about how that even informed like my early couple years of acting, right? That's sort of like the that patriarchal culture, that misogynistic culture of like, okay, I'm gonna act, but like I'm going to act, I'm going to behave in a certain way to assert masculinity, to assert heteronormativity, just so that everybody's clear that like I'm here, but you're battling your own sort of limited preconceptions and biases, really. At least I did. That bore out a culture of I think a lot of actors like me who behaved in ways probably at the beginning of our careers that were problematic, I think, to be most kindly, to say it most kindly.
Absolutely. I hadn't thought about it, but I probably
Yeah.
did the same thing. And it's so antithetical to the vulnerability that acting actually requires
Yeah.
and the level of emotional availability that it requires.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that. Growing up in South Jersey suburbs,
Mm.
do you feel like growing up in the Midwest was also part of that? Just these preconceived notions.
Yeah, I think so. I think what I was very clear on, when I decided that I was like, oh, I think I should be an actor, was I found what seemed to be a traditional path of like life and career for me. I found it incredibly limiting and frustrating. And there was this instinctive sense that my lack of enjoyment and my inability to sort of thrive in in that sort of traditional culture, I didn't recognize that as uh, initially as an opportunity to seek out another path. I saw that as me failing at the thing that I was
Mm,
supposed to be doing, and that was a very sort of utilitarian kind of, you go to college to get a job, right? To get trained at a job, and then you go earn, you know, a living at that job to provide for a family. And it was all a very sort of white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalistic way of pursuing life that I instinctively was dissatisfied with, but I certainly didn't have the education or the awareness or the wherewithal to understand that I was instinctively, intuitively rejecting that. I just got an acting class and was like, oh, well, this feels completely different than the world in which I'm normally trafficking, and this world feels so much more enjoyable
mm,
and seems to
mm.
offer so much more liberation to me. I think this is the path I should be on.
Where was this? what college? What city?
Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So interesting. So you were in the same state, but you still
Mhm.
had that revelation just getting into acting class.
Yeah, what was funny though is that like almost immediately, so I did like the second I found acting, I had done all my electives because I had sort of abandoned my initial major in college and was mostly just doing electives and like partying. And so when I found acting, seemed to actually find a purpose for why I was at school. I like ran through that program of like I'm taking every course, I'm taking the theater design course, I'm taking the theater history course, and I ran through it in like 3 semesters and went to the head of the department and asked him like, "Do you think I'm good enough to do this professionally?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Cool, then get me out of here." And so we concocted what's called an interdisciplinary degree, where they took all my old credits. I was originally a journalism major. They took all those credits and my credits in theater and combined them into basically a made up degree, just so I could get out of school and go to New York.
Wow.
So
Good
yeah,
thing you didn't go into journalism, a profession that's really struggling right now, went into acting, a profession that's
right.
thriving right
Right.
now.
They dodged the bullet.
So you did get through the program, and
Mhm.
so you, and then right after that, what was the journey to New York?
I spent a summer in Chicago doing a couple of things. I parked cars at Steppenwolf, and I got into the Actors Studio Drama
I
School.
didn't know you parked cars at Steppenwolf. That's
Yeah,
cool.
I scratched like I don't know anything about cars, but like I scratched like a really
You also didn't know how
nice.
to drive.
Yeah,
No.
I remember I scratched like a really nice like Jaguar or something, like trying to do a 3-point turn. Because
Ooh.
it's got those elevated levels in the parking, and I
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think that was my last day. So like, what am I qualified for other than being an actor, right? I can't be a journalism major, right? I can't park cars. This
Not a great valet.
no, yeah, yeah. So I got accepted to the Actors Studio Drama School.
Through
So
auditions, did you have to audition initially?
yeah, yeah. So I flew to New York with my scene partner, and it was so funny, right? I was just talking with a friend about this, that when you first start a craft, you are so naive and enthusiastic about the craft that you become so sort of like holistically serious, and you can be sanctimonious about it, and you can be very precious about it because there's a fragility to it, because I've been acting for 18 months or whatever, right? And I knew I wanted to be taken serious at this thing, and I wanted to be great at it. So I remember for my audition I did a scene from Patrick Marber's Closer. And so like I walked around Chicago that whole summer with like a British accent, and like went in and did the audition, and I had the same experience that everybody has, I think, when they get into the program. Bradley Cooper, who's like 2 years ahead of me, talked about this in an interview, that so you do the audition in Tisch Auditorium in Manhattan, which is like on 12th and 6th, and it's a huge theater. And so you do your audition on the stage, and then like it's dark, like all the seats are dark, and then after your scene, you hear like these footsteps coming from out of the darkness, and like James Lipton comes down to like the edge of the stage, and he gestures for you to come down, and you come down to crouch down at the lip of the stage, in that sort of, that voice that he has. He was like, "Are you ready to commit yourself to this program for the next 3 years?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I think so." um, and that's how I. And the funny is that you leave, right, and like you're dissecting what that meant, because he didn't invite me to the studio there. Like there wasn't like an application that was accepted there, right? So like the whole flight home, I'm like, "So does that mean I get in?" When he said commitment, did that mean like that I'm not committed? Right? I was doing all this sort of second guessing and triple guessing about what he meant by coming to the edge of the stage
Right.
and
Yeah.
asking if I was.
In my head, he kissed you on the forehead.
He didn't like me very much. He wanted not liking me very much. So that would have been nice. That would have been a nice moment between the two of us.
I didn't know James Lipton did that for
Yeah,
prospective students, but that's crazy.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
But there is a kind of an air of mystery surrounding the whole thing anyway. Like it's not a massive surprise that they were vague about that too.
yeah, yeah. And I have feelings in general. Like you guys know, I do jiu-jitsu. In addition to like, you know, acting and writing. And
Definitely.
there's a temptation in a lot of these skills for people to sort of make it mystical. I know, like when I teach and when I'm rehearsing and when I'm working, I want to demystify that process as much as possible because it feels really undemocratic to sort of layer, what is a human experience and a set of skills that can be improved upon, that can be refined, that can be utilized to sort of layer this level of mysticism on it.
I really appreciate that because I think as I've gotten older and more experienced, I've seen the value of actionable things. You know what I mean? Actionable direction. Because I think when you're a young actor, certainly this is my experience of it, all of that mysticism and stuff that surrounds it resulted in me thinking, I just have to figure this out for myself. I just have
Hmm.
to instinctively know somehow what they mean and translate that into a performance without really knowing how and hoping I stumble upon it. Whereas the more I see people demystifying it, like yourself, and people give actionable direction that I can actually take and use, the more of a grasp I feel I have on it, and the
Yeah.
simpler it becomes.
Yeah, I think, and obviously, we can talk about our common experience of training at Leslie's, but one of the
Yeah,
things that I wound
definitely.
up being grateful for with Leslie was that level of clarity, because my experience early on as an actor was, again, I have that fragility of wanting to be great at this thing, but having so little experience at it, right? And the way a lot of teachers would talk to me was in this very poetical, beautiful, but completely sort of oblique cadence and vocabulary. Where again, at 2021, I'm too terrified, right? I'm so dedicated to want to be great at this. I'm too terrified to just go like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know what you want me to do. I didn't get half your references.
Wait, you don't think when the tiger drinks the water, he knows not whether the butterfly is watching is helpful?
Yeah, and so you wind up going like, yeah, man. Yeah. I just think there's such a temptation because when you're young, you want to be an artist. So, and like when you use imagery like that, when you talk in poetical fashion, of course, a young kid like me who's like in New York for the first time is going to be like, that's beautiful. And I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but I want to be part of this. So, yeah, I agree. But then you walk in your next rehearsal for, Danny the Deep Blue Sea or Early Burley or David Mamet, whatever you're doing, and you're like, I have no idea what they want me to do. I guess I'll just rehearse harder. You know, I think that's the other thing about, at that level of like novice and trying to learn how to improve is that so much of my experience was showing up and like, getting a part in a play or doing a scene. And you basically showed up and you did your first rehearsal was basically doing your best performance possible with no rehearsal. And then you showed up for your second rehearsal and basically did the best performance you could possibly do with one rehearsal. And that was sort of the evolution of putting that character together and that scene together. And through osmosis and through slow glacial evolution, you might learn a couple things. But I think one, that process of learning is really slow. And then what I also found is the application of whatever I learned in that first experience, very little of it translated to the next experience I had. And all I knew, was when I first started acting, the actors I responded to all seemed to have one thing in common, which is they were trained at the studio or people associated with the studio. So it was Mickey Rourke, it was Robert De Niro, it was Harvey Keitel, it was Ellen Burstyn, it was Al Pacino, it was Newman, and so I was in that program for 3 years. I had very complicated feelings about it. There's a lot about it that for which I am very grateful. There's a lot about it for which I am enraged. These days, I think with more distance, I'm more grateful for it than enraged, but I went through a period where I was quite enraged. But it's been my experience of being in the business that most of those institutions that charge a exorbitant fee for you to learn the skills of acting do a relatively terrible job at preparing actors to go work in the professional world. And I know often the educators at those institutions will say like, "Hey, that's not our job," or "We are not a
A trade school?
yeah, we're not a trade school. We are teaching you a craft." Which the difference between that is too fine for me to appreciate. I just think if
Yeah.
you're taking you know money from young kids and money in the you know that are in the five figures, you have a responsibility to prepare them for the professional world as long as we're going to live in this capitalistic knife fight of a country that we live in.
That's a great description of it.
Part of my frustration was feeling that that institution and many institutions like it absolve themselves of that responsibility, and so you have generations of students coming out of grad schools and conservatories feeling incredibly prepared and thousands of dollars and sometimes tens of thousands of dollars in debt, and find that they know. I know my case was I certainly knew very, very little about working in a professional context.
Okay, so you don't feel like it prepared you for the actual job? An art. I did an arts degree, I did politics and philosophy in college. I came out and I went to classes part time. I didn't go to a full time drama course, and I always regretted that. I never had that experience, and I often wondered, looking back, had I had that, would I have been better prepared, or would it have given me a sort of a head start in the industry? And I don't know. It's irrelevant now, but like I just don't know.
It might have in certain ways, but I think it also it can also inhibit you in certain ways, right? So like I know that what I would say was of value at the institution where I trained was I think it very much prepared me to go do a play somewhere where I could have a 3 to 6 week rehearsal process and then could do a month of out of town previews and then could, open up that play, right? So that type of, I always think about this. This is my second Bradley Cooper reference, who I have a great amount of affection for. When he was doing press for Maestro, he had an interview where he discussed that he thought the best way to prepare for playing a role was complete immersion and to spend weeks and months and possibly even years like as that character and exploring every facet of that character and figuring out, you know, all the elements of their life and letting it be sort of a slow revelatory exploration. And he said that and he's like, I didn't think that's the best way to work. And I was kind of like, well, yeah, motherfucker, it is. I actually do believe that. But 99% of us don't get to do that. Right. And so I think the training I had prepared me to, if I were ever lucky enough to be in Bradley Cooper or Daniel Day-Lewis's shoes, to work that way. It also prepared me to go do a play, in regional theater, where I had weeks and weeks and weeks to prepare. But our experience is you're going to get the audition on Monday. Thanks to our SAG-AFTRA union, the audition is now due on Wednesday. We can
Yeah.
talk about that in a little bit, right? But even that, right? Even that 48 hours is a turnover at the speed of light compared to the way I was trained. And so that was part of my struggle initially, right? Is like being at the actor's studio where you were encouraged to go slow and not make any decisions too quickly and to really explore and not it was not only were you discouraged from making choices too quickly, but it was sort of implied that you were a hack, right? That if you were making choices too quickly, right? That
Okay.
that wasn't true exploration, that wasn't true artistry. Well, fast forward a couple of years, and poor Jonathan Strauss has called me in 17 times for Law and Order, and I know on his side of the desk, he's like, "Dude, do something, do something, anything. I desperately want to give you a part." Right? Just do anything. And I'm like, no, I can't make a choice yet. I've only had these sides for 36 hours.
Can you talk a little bit about what the professional expectations were for let's say your graduating class? Were people thinking about TV, film, or were people more geared towards doing theater?
Yeah. I remember asking James Lipton, I think second year, we didn't have a film and television training program. It was all theatrical. And
Well, there you go.
yeah, and
Okay.
I remember asking him at some point, I'm like, are we going to do any on camera work? And again, in that voice he has, I remember him say, I will never forget this response. He looks me dead in the eye and he goes, our work transcends the mediums. And I'm like, and listen, again,
Oh
when
my
you're
God, I love that.
21, you're like, got it. That's the most beautiful answer I've ever heard. Right? Because it feels like the most artistic answer. It feels like the most liberating answer. Like, great, there aren't rules to different genres and different mediums I need to learn. Whatever my inspiration is, right? That will simply, again, transcend the mediums. But, it obviously was a load of shit. Um, because we now know there's a difference between working in film, television, theater. We know there's a difference between working in multicam, single cam, a 1 hour drama. We know there's a difference between a YouTube video and a theatrical, feature release. And all of those things require, you know, um, I won't say a different form of acting, but just a calibration that we need to do. And denying us the education of of what calibration is required is doing people a real disservice.
Before I don't even know if I was an actor yet, but before I was just starting out, I was watching Inside the Actor Studio, his show, but I didn't realize he had such a hands-on process with the actual school.
He was the dean of the school, and my relationship, I feel like, with him was, even my regard from now is very complicated. I think the show is a wonderful show. Without getting too deep in like the history of the Actors Studio, I think him starting that school is what actually saved the Actors Studio, which is a venerable institution that I hold a great amount of reverence for.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, he's got a great instinct for a round of applause. He will just leave a little pause, say the name of a movie. You did a film called Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah.
Did you ever audition for the Actors Studio? We can't. Sorry, this is a bit of a
no. I wasn't even. I wish like
I did. I auditioned. I loved the experience. It was just so weird and fun, and I wasn't that invested either way.
To be honest, it feels like something I would yearn a long time ago, but not now. You know what I mean? Like even hearing your story, it's the magic of what made me want to become an actor, and I think it's important to have that magic, and I don't want to ever lose that feeling of it. If anything, I'm trying to use that to translate to other things I'm working on.
Yeah, I hear you. I think for me, what I learned over time, especially, when I arrived at Leslie's, was both places I have a great amount of reverence for. They just serve different purposes for my acting, right? Uh, and B, to synthesize what I do at the studio with what I have been taught to do at Leslie's, I think is of great value to me. I think what I'm able to do at the studio, I think, is sort of stretch what I'm capable of doing. And I feel like what I'm able to do at Leslie's is to sort of artistically, but also professionally, refine uh, accuracy. There can be there can be an antagonism to the writing that can exist at the studio, where it's all about what the actor's personal experience is, and it doesn't matter what the writer wrote. But my question to that is always, then why did you pick that piece of material? If the writing is um, irrelevant to what your personal experience is, leave the writer alone. Go pick another piece of material, or don't pick a piece of material at all. So they're complicated, because most method actors don't refer to themselves as like method actors, right? Because I think most actors that are good are all kind of doing the same thing. You may have semantic labels for what you call a thing. You may have different points of emphasis for which of the skills you utilize depending on the role. But like method acting is sort of a philosophical understanding of who your identity is. I think is problematic. Um, but generally speaking, I think the problem with a lot of method acting, and I think I'm referring particularly to like people who sort of trained under Strasberg, is they do their work backwards. In other words, they read the script once and they sort of figure out where they emotionally connect with it, and they'll do a substitution or whatever on that part of the play or that part of the script, and then over a period of time they might learn the rest of the script, right? As opposed to reading the script first and making really specific um, uh, rigorous investigation into what the writer wrote, and then figuring out places where, because of the extraordinary circumstances of the character, you may need to lean into uh, you know skills that you learned in your method-based training, whether that's sensory substitution or whatnot.
My first real acting class before Leslie's was by someone who went to the actor studio, and it was primarily Strasberg, sense memory. So I have a fondness of it because it was like a newborn baby, just starting to act, doing the exercises. For someone who had nothing, bare bones, nothing, just to be comfortable in my body and just be able to connect and just be. It was great, and it was a great first step. But what I was really realizing was when I started to audition and started to work on camera, I couldn't take direction. Like absolutely. When I went over to other classes, I couldn't take when they used terms and techniques like say reversal. I just couldn't do it, and I was like, I have to give this Leslie Kahn a try, and then that's. But
Yeah.
I completely agree. I really appreciated having that experience before I went to
Well,
Leslie.
Yeah.
I think what ends up happening is so many actors who explore that branch of actor training, right? They sort of wind up getting stuck in level one. By that, what I mean is you've never acted before, so you've got to deal with the tension of performing in front of people, right? Your emotional availability performing in front of people, relaxing in front of people, where you can do what the core aspect of acting is, right? Which is behaving privately in public, right? And so when you have sort of any emotional outburst, any sort of emotional cathartic experience that feels genuine, there's a reward for that. And people can get stuck in sort of like that phase of the Dreyfus model, where you can convince yourself that that's the only part of the acting experience and the craft of acting that matters is sort of your emotional experience. And um, it makes it, if that's your priority, is your emotional experience, it makes it difficult to do all the things that Econ um, discovered.
What was your first professional job after you graduated? Like how much time happened? What was the first professional experience?
The way I want to answer this question is that upon reflection is if I have anything worthwhile to offer to anybody else in terms of education, it's an understanding that your and our career will not be linear. So right out of grad school, I got offered to do a touring production of Macbeth, uh, and it was non-union. It was going to tour for 4 months. It was going to pay me $400 a week, and I turned it down.
Ooh.
Yeah, because at the time I'm like, well, I don't want to be touring around like all these different cities and states. I got to be in New York and like auditioning for like film and TV. Mind you, again, I have yet to take an on-camera class, right? But the cognitive dissonance of like wanting to do film and TV and yet having not specifically prepared to do film and TV. Professional gig that I remember doing was a play called Cowboy versus Samurai by Michael Galamko, which actually, no, that's a lie. I'm so sorry. My first professional gig was actually a play called The Female Heart, um, which was done at the Harold Clurman Theater in New York. So I did that for a few months. And, what's so funny is, again, every sort of acting book, I read all the books of like all the biographies and the autobiographies. And I was so excited when I got The Female Heart because every book I had read sort of set out in laying out the story of this actor that the career was linear. Like they got a chance, and then they did a play, and then they did another thing, and they were just working consistently from that point on. So I'm like, great, I'm on my way. And instead, I didn't get another acting gig for like nearly a year. I think that was '04, and the year that year and 2000, I think, were 2 years I was in New York that like for a brief period I was homeless. I couldn't pay rent. It was hard for me to um, uh, get myself acclimated to the city in a functional way. So it was a really hard time. And I think that's the other thing that I learned is that looking back at that period, I'm like, well, I will get an acting job and that will solve my problems, and I need to be available for the acting job. So it's okay that I'm sleeping on a friend's couch. It's okay that I literally can't pay for food today. It's okay that I don't have an actual home to go to, because I will book a job tomorrow that will support and justify my lifestyle. And that's a pretty foolish way to live.
I absolutely I absolutely identify with that. I did the very same thing, when I started acting. I was like, well, I didn't go to do a J1 visa, which is a student visa to America, because I was like, no, I got to be here for jobs. My girlfriend at the time in college went off to Canada for 3 months, and she's like, why don't you come? And I was like, no, I got to be here for jobs that, didn't happen. It's an interesting, like, even that young, putting your life on hold for
Yeah.
something that may not happen is an interesting trait of
And it
of this profession.
it feels that starving artist idealism feels right even when you're like hungry and dirty. But man, it's um if I can offer anything to anybody else, right? It's really hard to be an artist if you can't eat. You need steaks in the freezer and something to keep the lights on. Because because of that also, like I couldn't be in a class. I couldn't get headshots
Yeah.
printed, which is a thing you did back then, right?
Yeah, how long was that period around 2004, and what helped you transition out of that or to a life that's a little more
Oh
stable?
man. So here's the thing. I was so excited when I first got out of grad school. Like anybody, I knew I was going to need a survival job, and I was a terrible bartender. I was a terrible waiter. Um, and I wanted getting a job at like a really fancy personal training gym and started making real money there. And then that gym went out of business. And I won't get into it, but not only did it go out of business, it put me in a lot of debt. And so there kept
Wow.
being like these resets where I'd sort of get on my feet, and then financially, things would sort of crumble beneath me, or I would take actions that would lead to financial insolvency. And again, I was willing to accept them because I thought this was the price of being an artist, not realizing that this was the thing that was actually getting in my way. I wound up, you guys have read The Artist's Way, right? Right.
Hmm.
I think a lot about the idea of the shadow artist. And because what wound up happening to me kind of '06 to 2011 before I moved out to LA was I unintentionally became a shadow artist in that, being, temporary homeless twice and having so many financial issues, I got really scared as I got older of like that ever happening again. And so I wound up working really hard at the gym and making a lot of money that I almost blew entirely. But as a result of that, I was working really long hours. And there's nights I slept at the gym and I'd be working 16 hours at the gym, but that's 16 hours that I'm not working on my craft. There's that 16 hours I'm not going to an acting class. I'm not picking up material and working on it. I still thought of myself as an actor and occasionally would rehearse for a play or audition for a play or audition for an episode of television, but I wasn't doing the things that were necessary to be an actual professional or to even be an artist with a acceptable level of proficiency. I had so much shame around the fact that I was not successful as an actor. The gym I worked at was a very successful, like sort of fancy personal training gym, and we had a lot of fancy people from all walks of life, like finance and fashion, and we've got a few like actors and writers and directors in there. And the play I did, Cowboy versus Samurai, was me, Hannah Moon, Joel De La Fuente, and C.S. Lee. That was the cast, and it was directed by Lloyd Suh. I'm so grateful to Joel De La Fuente. He taught me a lot about how to be a professional. Joel was also really good friends with Billy Crudup. They had gone to NYU together, and Billy Crudup was one of the reasons I wanted to be an actor. He was an inspiration for me.
Mm.
Billy was also a client at the gym. He was training with the head of my gym. I had kept those worlds, my acting life and my gym life, completely separate. Very few people knew that at the gym knew that I was an actor because I was embarrassed and shamed that I wasn't as successful as I thought I needed to be. And there was a morning after we had put up the play that Billy came into the gym, and I'm sitting at the juice bar having my shake before whatever my next session is. And Billy stands next to me, he looks over at me, and he goes, "You were in Joel's play." And like the other trainers are there, and like I freaked out. I was like, yeah. And he goes, "You were really good, man." And I went, "Thanks, man. Thanks a lot." And like I bolted. And
Oh my
uh,
God.
I I I think about that now that, the how I could not stand there and accept him, taking time and energy out of his day to offer me a compliment from someone who is an inspiration to me, who clearly is a master of their craft, to express any level of appreciation for what I was doing. And because of the way I had sort of perceived my career, right, I literally couldn't take the compliment because I had become so much of a shadow artist that even I could not step into, even for a moment, being an actor in front of one of my inspirations for being an actor. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Um,
I was just going to say, so you're in New York. Are you auditioning at this period at all, much, or very sporadically?
Occasionally,
Do you have an agent? Are you kind of in it or not
I had
fully in
no
it?
agent. I was occasionally auditioning, but I can't sing and dance, so I'm doing only straight plays and like television, right? So again, I'm auditioning for Law and Order like every other week. In '09, two things happened. One, I finally got cast on Law and Order, did a little co-star on Law and Order, I got shot in the face. Yeah.
Nice.
Can
Yeah.
relate.
Can I tell you how dumb I was? This is gonna illustrate
Please.
exactly
Yeah.
how
Yeah, please.
galactically dumb I was, and how grateful I am for like Leslie. Like, and again, nobody had ever really taught me how to read a script. Like even a play script, I would just sort of read the words, and then I would go do all my sensory work, and I would do all my improvisations, and I would do all that work, and eventually I would learn some of the lines. When they sent me like the email confirming that I was cast, for whatever reason, it may have some cognitive issues that we're discovering, but like I didn't know what part I was playing. They sent me the full script, and I didn't know which part I was going to play. So I found the part that seemed like most like me, and I prepared that.
Wow.
I only had one day of work because I was a co-star. I was preparing the role that Dallas Jenkins wound up playing. That was like a recurring guest star for like 3 episodes or some shit. So like I am cramming all these lines from this episode into my head,
Oh
and I'm
no.
reading it. And I've never done an episode of film or television before. But so I'm reading this, going like, I don't know how they're going to do all this in one day. Like I'm only there for one day. Like travel alone is going to be hard. I can't tell you how galactically stupid I
Wow.
was.
But you had auditioned for the role you ended up shooting, right? You had auditioned for
Yeah,
that
I just
role,
thought they were
or
giving me a
no? They
different
just
role because
happened.
that happened all the
Yeah.
time in theater. Everything I'd ever done was like a big part in a play. So when I'm reading the script, I'm like, well, clearly I'm this guy, which there may be like an extraordinary sense of like white male entitlement and privilege. I'm like, well, clearly I'm this important guy. Um,
Well, I guess I'm replacing the lead. Okay.
but so I extrapolated from like what my theater experiences were. Like, this must be how it works. And by the way, thank God I was wrong because I would have been terrible. Like after 2 days of work playing that recurring guest star, thank God they only gave me 2 lines and I got shot in the face. So I did that. And the same year, I wound up doing a little improvisatory movie with Steven Soderbergh called The Girlfriend Experience.
Oh
Pretty
my
It
cool.
God.
really was. It really
Yeah,
was.
let's talk about that. Yeah.
So it was written by Brian Koppelman and David Levine. That's kind of how like my Billions journey starts.
Yeah, I was gonna say that that's a connection.
It starred Sasha Grey. Steven Soderbergh was directing it, and my buddy Chris Santos was playing the male lead in it. And so I was cast as his best friend in the movie. I'm laughing about telling this story, and what this will be an entertaining story, but we'll see if I ever get another job again after this. So our scene is where we have one scene. We're at a bar, and he's talking to me about his troubles with his girlfriend. His girlfriend is a high-end escort, and so this was my dream. We are shooting in the Village in Manhattan. This is all I've ever wanted to be. I think I was doing another theater show at the time. I just did an episode of Law and Order, which every actor needs to do. I am now shooting an independent movie with Steven Soderbergh uh, in the Village. This is everything I've ever wanted to be. Chris and I we're like, we should be drinking something. Like we're at a bar, we should have a drink. I'm like, what we should be drinking? And I pointed at a bottle of whiskey on the shelf. I'm like, that I just had that last week. We should have that. And it was a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue. And the
Okay.
entire reason I pointed at it was because like a week before I had a meeting for something at the AEA building. And if you're equity at the bar they have there, if you have your equity card, all drinks are half off. Right. And so when I'd gone up there, right, to have this meeting and everybody was having a drink socially, I'm looking at the menu. I'm like, well, I'm not going to get a $5 Budweiser for 250. Like if it's half off, I'm going to get this shot
Yeah.
that's $25. So I pointed to the bottle of Johnny Walker Blue, like, we should have that. And so the bartender, was this lovely young woman, gets us 2 shots of Johnny Walker Blue. And so we're sipping it and we're talking through what we're going to do in the improv, and they're setting up the lights behind us. And it's still a long wait. And we finish our shots. So we get a second shot. And we're still improving through everything and talking how the scene's going to go and everything. We finish those second shots. So we order a third. It is not occurring to us what we're doing. This big burly, like just burly chested, long armed dude comes over and he's like, "Hey, the fuck are you guys doing?" I have no idea who this guy is. So I'm like, "I'm making a Steven Soderbergh movie. I'm doing art here. Like, who's this guy?" And we're like, "What?" And he goes, "You guys are drinking all my good booze." And I realized it was the owner of the bar. And it was, I don't know what the cognitive dissonance was. It's only at that moment that I realized, like, oh shit, we have now drunk 6 shots of Johnny Walker Blue. By the way, have yet to shoot a frame. Um, at which point Steven comes over and he's like, "Hey, what's the problem?" And Steven is like, it goes without saying, he's the most brilliant person. He's the most intelligent person. He's the coolest fucking
I always
person.
loved him. Yeah.
He's just the dude is just a G. And so Steven comes over and he's like, "Hey, what's the problem?" And at this point, now I feel terrible, right? And I'm like, again, I don't know what the cognitive dissonance was. Again, I feel like Anchorman, where I've jumped into the bear pit. I'm like, I immediately regret this decision. So I turn to Steven. I'm like, "Steven, I'm so sorry. This is our idea. We weren't thinking. I will pay for the booze, whatever." Steven goes, "Oh, no, we got it." The guy's like, "You guys going to pay for this?" And Steven's like, "Yeah, we got it." So he's like, "All right." He leaves. And I turn to Steven. I'm like, "I am so sorry. I'm completely embarrassed. I just wasn't thinking." And he just shrugged and went, "It's a movie." So we had a four shot.
Oh my
And
Nice.
then, yeah,
God. I love this. He didn't bat an eyelash for you ordering the most expensive shots on an independent movie. Credit to him.
well,
That's crazy.
credit to him. Like,
That's awesome.
don't drink on set. Is like, like, I don't know what we were thinking.
So can we talk about Billions?
Sure.
Because you do have a great story
Oh, God.
on Billions, but for people that don't
But
know,
before we jump into
yeah, go
that,
ahead.
so you went to LA then, or were you in LA by this point?
A year after I'd done that episode of Law and Order and done the Soderbergh movie, I decided to move to LA, which I probably should have
Yeah.
done earlier.
Wow.
I felt like I just sort of
Mm.
capped out in a bunch of different ways of what I could experience in New York. There is an entertainment industry, but it's like the fifth industry in that town.
Sorry, I was just going to say there's something beautiful about that. And there's also something a little bit that can be a bit restrictive about that. But you're in LA, so
Mhm.
you get cast in Billions from LA, and that, okay, cool.
And the way the Billions audition even came about, I'd gotten along with Brian and Dave through Girlfriend Experience, and Dave and I actually did Jiu Jitsu together a lot. He's a badass. He got his black belt last year, so he's a legit dude. And then I was really struggling out in LA for like my first 3 or 4 years. It felt like my first couple years in New York, except now I'm a decade older and should be wiser and don't feel it. And I had stayed in contact with them. I can't tell you how kind they were to me, how like anytime I had an industry question, because I'd started writing, and any question about how the business worked. So they were doing this movie called Runner Runner, and I just messaged them one day and asked if I could audition for it. And they said, yeah. So I went in and I read for Carmen Cuba, and I got done. And like the next day or whatever, they messaged me and they were like, "Hey man, great audition. You're not going to get this part because it was for one of Ben Affleck's bodyguards, and you're not a 6'5" Russian dude. Like Ben himself is like 6'4", so you're not going to be his bodyguard. But really great audition." And then what happened was like a year or two later after that, I get a message from them out of the blue. Again, I'm really struggling financially. I'm really struggling life-wise. And I get a message from them out of the blue that says, "Hey, we're doing this show in New York. We got a part for you. No lines yet, but when you show up on set, we'll have lines for you. And if the show gets picked up, it'll recur. Can you be here Friday or whatever?" And that was it.
Amazing. So you didn't even have to audition for that role.
No, but that actually became part of the problem for me anyway, right? It was so gracious for them, right? But one, I had to get myself to New York. I had no money. I cobbled together the money to get to New York. And so, yeah, this is the story I've told a few times. Never publicly, though. So I get on set and I'm playing Chef Ryan. So I'm the personal chef to Damian Lewis's character, Axe, who's the lead in the show and is a hedge fund billionaire. And they described to me what the scene was going to be, which is like, "Hey, you're serving them dinner around the kitchen countertop." And that's pretty much it. You love serving them and you take great pride in the food you serve. So I'm like, "Okay, great, no problem." And so I get there and they got their lines for me, which to this day I can remember, right? So I'm supposed to put down the food and the line is like, "Okay, guys, we've got urban crusted free range organic chicken breasts, grilled asparagus tips, mashed potatoes, enjoy." No problem, right? So I get on set and again, I haven't been on set that often. I'd never been on set for a pilot. So I wasn't aware that there was going to be like 30 other people from the network there walking around in like suits and ties with cups of coffee,
Mm.
sort of like in everyone's way and monitoring and asking questions and passing judgment. And it provides a level of tension, I think, that's different than like when you're just shooting an episode. I'm ready to do the scene, right? I got the line. And then what they asked me to do is like, "Okay, so here's what the scene is. You're going to take two plates off a working stove. You're going to come around the kitchen island. You're going to put them down in front of Axe and his son. Also, don't block their faces while you're putting the plates down because they're going to be doing lines. Also, his son is 10 years old. He's not going to do a lot to help you in the timing of this. Don't rattle the plates when they touch the kitchen countertop. Once you put the plates down, go around the kitchen island and get back to your position at one. To get around the kitchen island, what that meant was I had to jump over a sandbag, duck under a light, get back to my place to go, okay, guys, we've got urban crusted free range organic chicken breast, grilled asparagus tips, mashed potatoes. Enjoy. So we start shooting and everything's fine. Except I notice on the table, there's more than just the chicken breast, the asparagus, and the mashed potatoes. There's like two or three other things. There's like rolls and everything. So I start going, okay, guys, we've got free range organic chicken breast, grilled asparagus tips, mashed potatoes, et cetera, et cetera. Enjoy. Two things happen. One, Brian comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, just cut the et cetera. Because Brian and Dave are great writers, and they're one of the sets where when you show up, you are word perfect. You don't change their words, you don't invert, you don't paraphrase, you do their words, right? Because they
Okay.
have earned that. Oh, I forgot the most important part. While I'm doing all this with these plates, as I first take the plates off the stove, there is going to be a giant German shepherd that is going to sprint between my legs. So I got a working stove, I got dogs, I got kids, I got the whole thing, right? So everything W.C. Fields told you not to work with, I got on my first day on the set. So two things happen. One, Brian gives me the note on the line, and two, I hear the dog trainer tell the first AD or whatever. He says like, "Hey, listen, the way they were getting the dog to run the route that they needed to run was they put a treat somewhere, and the dog like does the route to go get the treat." And I hear the dog trainer say like, "But the dog's really smart. If you do too many takes, he'll figure out where the treat is, and he won't run the route. He'll just run straight for the treat." For whatever reason, that put a lot of pressure on me to be like, "Oh, I got to make this perfect." Also,
Oh
the dog
no.
was running so fast, and in one of the takes, I was scared I was going to hit the dog. I was scared like we would collide and I was going to hurt the dog. So I start like, instead of letting the dog run between my legs, I'm going to start sticking my leg out so that he can like jump over my leg. And then the director's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, the great Neil Berger was like the director of the episode. He's like, "What are you doing? Get in front of the dog." And I'm like, right. So now, between these three things, and then I blew one take. Now, again, everybody blows a take on a set occasionally. And it's not a big deal, right? You don't want to be the person who blows multiple takes, right? But everybody blows a take, you reset, you go back, you're fine. Between all these things, my brain explodes. And all of a sudden I can't get the
Oh,
line out
dude.
at all. Like every I
Oh
fuck up
no.
every take in front of Brian and Dave, who are friends, who
Shit.
offered me this job without an audition. I am fucking this up in front of Neil Berger. I am fucking this up in front of Damian Lewis. I am fucking this up in front of Malin Ackerman. Fucking this up
Oh,
in front
dude.
of
I can feel it.
I'm fucking this up in front of 20 executives from Showtime. So I am dying. Like I'm a recurring co-star on the show. And at this point I wasn't even recurring. And the way things were going, recurring didn't look like right? It is doubtful, right? So I didn't feel like I could be like, "Hey guys, can I take a minute?" I just keep banging away at this thing and fucking up the take every time. To the point where Brian, and what I love about one of the many things I love about Brian and Dave is they're the perfect partners. Brian is like the most gracious, like dinner host. He's loquacious, he's funny, he's witty, he can talk to anyone about anything, he's warm. And so Brian comes over to me and he's like, just say chicken and vegetables, right? That's all it is, right? Chicken and vegetables. Just say chicken and vegetables. Like, yeah. And like, yeah, go ahead. And I didn't realize that was the break he was giving me. He's like, don't worry about saying the line. Like, and I also didn't realize he was getting everybody else's coverage so that like I would stop blowing takes. Um,
Oh, okay.
right? Like I knew this was bad. I also, until later, didn't realize how bad it was. So I do chicken and vegetables for a couple takes. And then finally Dave comes over to me. And again, I love Dave so much. Dave is that dude who's going to be really quiet and he's going to say one thing, and it's either going to be the most insightful thing you've ever heard. It's going to keep you up for 3 days. He's done that to me. Or it will be the funniest thing you've ever heard. So Dave comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, man, I think you got to say the whole line." And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, I mean, what they're paying for, right?" And I, again, I'm a fan of pro wrestling where what's reality and what is show intermingle, right? That meta. And I knew he was talking about the character, but it also felt like he was talking about me and him. I felt like it was a really gentle, great way of being like, "Hey man, get it together.
Yeah.
Get your one fucking line out of your mouth." So like I melted inside. So we finally finished the day. I don't think I ever did it right. But I left because I left going like, this is it. This is I'm done. They gave you an opportunity. Your friends gave you an opportunity. You didn't earn this through an audition, right? That's why like not having an audition didn't feel great for me. I was gifted this. There's 1,000
Yeah.
actors in New York who could have done this, right? Who could have given a dinner order, right? I fly home and I'm like, I, I felt embarrassed. I felt frustrated. I felt I had let them down, which is the most important feeling I was feeling was that they had taken a chance on giving me an opportunity and that I had really, really blown it. Obviously, I didn't blow it too badly. They did bring me back for like 15, 16 episodes, and I was very grateful for it. But I will tell you this, when I got the script for the second episode I was going to be in, I was so grateful because I was sure that I wasn't going to have a job in the show. I was sure they would either cut the scene or recast it or whatever. So when I get the script for the next episode, I open it up, and the plot of the scene is my character, Chef Ryan, is out getting groceries that morning, and Axe is making dinner, or I'm sorry, Axe is making breakfast for the boys that morning. So when I come home, I've got my grocery bags. I walk into the kitchen. He's making breakfast, and my line is, "Am I out of a job?"
Oh wow.
When I
Spot
read
on.
that in my apartment in Los Angeles, I literally went ah and threw the script across the room. So that was
Wow.
my first day on Billions.
Beautiful. And
Love that.
you stayed on it. You
I
stayed on
did.
the
Is
show. That's
anybody going to
beautiful.
listen to this considering all
That's
my
a
stories about how I fucked up?
I know, I know. We're really pushing it with this one. So the reason why I love the story so much is because a lot of people who aren't in the industry don't understand how hard it is for a day player, co-star, guest star, one day co-star coming onto a show. And this is kind of like the perfect example of all the things that someone may have to juggle. You get thrown into the fire.
I've been a lead in movies. I've done Hamlet twice. I've done Macbeth. Why can I not get these tiny paragraph out of my mouth? Um, and doing those other projects, there's a much greater workload, right? But also I feel like a much greater safety net, right? Where like I knew like
yeah.
when the last movie that I led, right? Like we're gonna shoot that from all these different setups. And so I'm covered, I'm
Yeah.
protected. I know if like I blow one take here, again, I don't want to do that often, but like we're gonna get all this footage where like I'm going to knock it out of the park, right? And I'm going to feel really good about what I did. The director's going to feel really good about what I did. When you're a co-star,
Yeah.
like you're not getting that opportunity, right? It's going to be like maybe two, maybe three takes and you're out. So you always want to hit the bullseye.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And there's more importance on everything you're doing because that's the only thing you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah. I
Sorry,
love
Tim.
that.
I know that we're going a little long. I really want to hear about your theater project,
Sure.
Distress Signals. Tell us more about what your baby is, and what you're launching next month.
Sure. Thank you. So, the Distress Signals project is going to be a theatrical performance, a theatrical production we're doing here in Los Angeles in October. It was born initially out of the multiple strikes we had a couple years ago, and every brilliant actor, every brilliant writer I knew was, temporarily out of work, and I think I initially discussed it with Joel Johnstone, who's a wonderful, wonderful actor that I know from Lesly Kahn and taught at Leslie's for a long time as well. And we were just like, we should just get some great actors that we know and just put us in place somewhere. And so that was the initial genesis of it. But then as I was starting to look for plays, there wasn't any sort of thematic consistency between them. And I didn't want it to be like a drama school repertoire where like you come and watch 20 minutes of Spiked Heels and 20 minutes of, Burn This.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to find pieces that started to tell a story. And so as I started looking for those, I had always wanted to have a theater company that directly supported service organizations, that had a partnership and collaboration with service organizations. It's something I had always wanted to do.
And by service organizations, what do you mean?
So what we wound up doing was selecting four plays that were thematically connected. And then what we had is each of the playwrights selected a philanthropic organization, like a charity organization, that serviced the needs of the communities that were depicted in their plays. And so what we're doing for Distress Signals is we're putting up four short plays that are about various communities that are in distress, hence the title of the production, Distress Signals. And all of the money that we're raising from ticket sales and all the profits and proceeds from concessions and stuff like that are going to go to the service organizations that the playwrights have selected. So there's a thematic consistency of communities in distress, and hopefully the event itself will raise money and bring support and awareness to these communities that are in various levels of distress that could use amplification, that could use solidarity from us.
What's the time period for these four plays?
So the performances are going to run October 3rd to the 5th. It's at the Willie Adgie Playhouse in Inglewood. That location felt important for us considering the audience that we want. What each piece is going to do, I should be clear, is there will be four pieces. And then afterwards, my co-producer and my partner, Toyin Augustus, is going to hold a moderated talk back with the audience where we can discuss the issues that are raised.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we hope that it'll be a successful night in terms of raising money for these service organizations. We hope it'll be a successful night creatively and critically in terms of people enjoying the work and wanting to engage with the work to build a greater sense of artistic support and community support. And we hope we get to do it on a recurring basis. This has been a lot of work, but it's very rewarding work. And so I hope we get to do it, every year or twice a year or who knows.
Can you kind of go through the nuts and bolts of what it's like to put all this together? What was that process like?
I had so much inexperience and often no experience in a lot of the things that I've had to do as a producer on this. And what I've been most grateful for is simply asking for what I need. I am so lucky to be surrounded by so many artists and so many art-minded people that I think want to help, that are generous of heart. That there were so many things I'm like, well, I need this, but I don't know how to do that. And so I would simply, you know, in the communities that we all traffic in, I would just turn to someone who I thought might know something and be like, I need this. How do I make that happen? And someone would always step up and be like, I've got this.
I love that, and I think that's a testament to who you are as a person and how people regard you. Because I know there's been, like you said, there's been a lot of self-deprecating stories in here, but it kind of disguises the fact that you've had a very successful career, not only as an actor but also as a writer. You've sold scripts. You teach and coach, and you have a real aptitude for that, which is rare. I mean, you're an excellent coach and teacher as well as actor and writer. So I feel like some of those stories don't give the full picture of who you are
Yeah.
as a human being and as a professional, because also, and in addition to that, you've a lot of compassion in you. I see the way you handle people, and it's very deft and skillful, the way you treat people and the way you work with people. So there's a lot of really great things in there that we haven't even scratched the surface of, really. But I just wanted to make a point of that, because that's the real truth.
I couldn't say it better by myself. I was thinking the same exact thing. And also, you could tell that with this project, there's a lot of heart in it. And I wouldn't trust anyone else to do this project besides you. So I'm really excited to see it. Tim, so what are the best handles, way to get in touch with you? We'll put the link and
Sure.
information to Distress Signals
Oh,
Project
thank you.
in the show description. But
So I'm not on many social media platforms. I am on Twitter. No, I'm not on Twitter. I'm sorry, I got kicked off Twitter.
say I would think that you were kicked off Twitter by now.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. Yeah, I actually got kicked off for threatening Nazis. Which-
Yeah,
who
yeah.
knew? Who knew that was a
Who
problem?
hasn't?
Yeah, I am on Instagram at it's Timothy Davis, ITS, my full name. It's Timothy Davis. If you want to follow the Distress Signals Project, there also is an Instagram page for the Distress Signals Project at Distress Signals Project. I am also on Blue Sky at it's Timothy Davis. It's where I went after I got kicked off Twitter.
Yeah,
Um, that's pretty much it, man.
blue
Those are the only
skies.
platforms I really engage in. Yeah.
And we never even got to the Gandolfini stories.
I
Oh,
know.
I mean that's another fuck up. So we'll say that for
Is it
folks.
really? Oh my God. Oh,
Very brief, we can talk about it next time.
okay.
In like 04, 05, my first acting teacher at the Extra Drama School was Gandolfini's acting coach and like one of his dear friends. And she offered me the job as his personal assistant. And I turned it down
Okay.
because I was like, I don't think he'll respect me if like I want to be an actor. I want to act with James Gandolfini. I don't want to be getting James Gandolfini's coffee and like
Wow.
getting his laundry. Not realizing James probably would have run scenes with me every fucking day and probably would have figured out like, oh, you could probably be on the show, dude, and like would have thrown me a bone and put me on the show. it was years later when I told this story to a couple friends, and it was Trisha LaFosse. She looks at me, she goes, "You know, he would have put you on the show, right?" And I was like, it was another moment of me melting.
That's
You
it.
know
Well,
what though?
that's also a great lesson for young actors, because I know a lot of people. I could relate to your thinking, and I don't think it's a clear cut decision for. I get
What
it.
I
I get it.
what I would offer about that, Econ, though, is the thing I didn't trust and would only learn later is how great a person James Gandolfini was, how generous he was, how kind he was. I know that because the guy who wound up taking the job was a buddy of mine from Jiu Jitsu, was an MMA fighter, and he was so kind to him. He was so extraordinarily generous with him. And so I think, when I look back on that, yes, I should have taken the job, but I think I would have been able to take the job also had I simply had been more trusting of the human spirit.
Yeah, but it also speaks to, I think, and like you kind of said, this is a good lesson for young actors, because I fell into this worried about, you know, how I was perceived from the outside. And so it's a great lesson for people to just fucking say yes, because you never know where yes takes you.
Mhm,
You know where
mhm.
no keeps you, but you never know where yes takes you. And I have to remember that all the time now. Just say yes. Just say yes.
All right. Well, I think that's a great place to end. If you have a hidden gem, we don't want to remove you from that opportunity. But
My only hidden gem, which isn't hidden, is jujitsu. I just think everybody should have something not related to the acting industry. For me, the value of jujitsu is one, it's a place where I get to practice who I want to be off the mat. You know, I get beat up sometimes and being able to be cool with that, right? I get outclassed sometimes and being able to be appreciative of that instead of resentful. Um, to endure sometimes great discomfort and to experience calm in that instead of anger or frustration is important. And also for my own mental health, it's the only objective thing that I'm really involved in, right? What we do is so subjective. We can talk later about like scripts I've sold or performances I've given in projects, and how those have been received differently, sometimes very complimentary and sometimes less complimentary. um so you can crush the audition and not get the part. You can write a beautiful script and the company isn't going to pick up the option, right? And that can be really frustrating because of the subjectivity of the business. So me having jujitsu, where it's what's happening is objective fact. If you stretch my arm and tap me, you got me, right? That's it. That's it. There's nothing to argue, right? I choke you. That is what happened. You can't say that you preferred another technique, because that's the one that fucking worked. So having a place where I can feel grounded in the objective reality of life and the objective reality of my efforts, while also having a place where I can practice being who I want to be off the mat, I think is crucially important. That's my only hidden gem, jujitsu.
I love that. What what's remind me your degree of black
I
belt?
mean, I'm a second degree black belt, but also like at that point, it's a ceremonial belt, right? Like I'm not a professional athlete, right? Like it's not like I'm.
Well, that's still really good. For the audience, that is really good, and
Yeah.
Tim is being incredibly humble, and I will say that a few episodes I gabbed about my experience doing jujitsu. I love it so much, but I'm just a hack. I just wanted them to hear
Yeah,
from you of all the things that I have learned, the humility besides the physical exercise. I miss it so much. I'll throw out a hidden gem just really quick. I actually have been going to Tim's studio, Subconscious Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in North Hollywood. Check it out. It's great. I miss you guys dearly.
we'd love to have you back, man. We'd love to have you back.
So, Rian, if you want to throw one out there, I don't want to
Love
put
it.
you under the gun here, but
I'm struggling now. I'm panicking.
go ahead, Rian. Shoot one out.
Shooting out. You know what I've been, because it's been so hot lately, I've bought a thing of hydration, like a hydration thing. What do you call it? I have it here. I'm gonna get it.
Like a
I'm gonna get my hidden
water,
gem.
like a water
My-
canteen.
No, it's
We might cut this. We might cut this. We might put this before Tim's hidden gem, so we can end on that.
I keep getting dehydrated, so I bought a giant thing of electrolytes,
Oh,
and I've been taking
okay.
it every day. And it's like, it was super cheap, and it's got a bit of million servings in it. It sounds very industrial. It's called Nutricost, which sounds crazy industrial, and it's fruit punch
Hey, I
flavored.
trust
And
it.
I have been so hydrated lately, let me tell you. So there you go. That's my hidden gem.
I think that's just a really smart thing for an Irishman in the hot LA sun to be
100%.
fueling themselves with electrolytes. So there you go.
Wither like a leaf in the sun if I don't.
Tim, thank you so much for your time. You've been so gracious. You can come on anytime. We're so excited for Distress Signals project. Check it out, everyone. It's going to be great. So we'll love to have you back and tell us about the
Thank you so much,
experience.
guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Appreciate you both. Love you both.
Love you too.
Thanks, brother.